Desertification and drought means scarcity of usable land and water, which have implications on food security, livelihoods, health, and safety of populations and communities. Women and girls are uniquely and differentially impacted, with structural inequalities and gender stereotypes limiting their rights and access to decision-making, resources, and finance, also in this context. Rural women typically work longer hours than men when paid productive and unpaid care and domestic work are taken into account. Collecting water and fuel, cooking and caretaking responsibilities are left for women and girls to do on top of their substantial role in agriculture and food production. When food is scarce due to low farm yields, the women in the households are often the first to reduce their nutritional intake, with dire consequences to their health and well-being, of course. Today, let us see all women and girls as they are, 50% of the planet's rights bearers and critical assets. Let us recognize them for their contributions and roles. They are forest managers, farmers, sources of traditional knowledge and techniques. They can be solar engineers, irrigation specialists, rain catchers, community leaders, or financial managers. UN Women, through its programs on climate resilient agriculture, agriculture production, and natural resource management, helps realize women's access to land, finance, and markets, and address gender stereotypes. Gains realized include the recognition of land rights for women, civil registration and licenses for their businesses, and access to finance for women for value chain investment. As empowered, economically resilient women, program beneficiaries set examples for girls and women in their communities, encouraging girls to go to school, for example. We are only now weeks away from the Generation Equality Forum in Paris, the most ambitious global gathering for gender equality in the past 25 years. Feminist action for climate justice will be central to the agenda, including the launch of a dedicated action coalition, which will bring together partners in government, the UN, civil society, the private sector, and philanthropy to ensure that women and girls in their full diversity equitably access climate finance, technologies, and knowledge, and they control natural resources for management and protection, including through land rights and ownership. We invite you to join us virtually in this undertaking and to mobilize so that girls and women lead decision-making and a just transition to a green economy. Thank you so much.
Dear friends, humanity has progressed at the expense of nature for far too long. As we recover from COVID-19, we have the opportunity to create an economy that works with nature, not against it. The World Desertification and Drought Day prompt us all to come together from every sector to build more sustainable, equitable, and resilient economies and society that preserve our ecosystem and lands. I wish to commend the terrific work of the UNSSD under the lead of my friend Ibrahim Cho to join efforts to this end. As a cornerstone of climate action, renewable energy can play an important role in land preservation. By decarbonizing our current energy system, we can limit rising temperatures that would otherwise contribute to further desertification, land degradation, and drought. Beyond preservation, renewables can promote the restoration of degraded land, which is usually unsuitable for food crops. Sustainable bioenergy production also offers economic incentives to restore land while mitigating emission to the replacement of fossil fuels. In addition to that, renewables can widen energy access and provide cost-effective energy solutions for resilient water and agri-food sectors, generating employment, income, and improving overall health condition. This task at hand is challenging, but possible if we work together. This is the decade of action. Let us this day to reaffirm our collective commitment to a sustainable and just future for all. Thank you very much.
Desertification, land degradation, and drought are three of the biggest environmental challenges we face. A few weeks ago, we kickstarted an important global solution to these challenges, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, aiming to prevent, to halt, and to reverse ecosystem degradation. So what does that mean? This means governments leaning in with policies and incentives to reverse land degradation and to protect water sources. This means COVID-19 recovery packages to invest in restoration. This means industries halting practices that destroy ecosystems at the expense of short-term profit. And I say short-term here because, let's face it, there are no profits on a destroyed planet. And this means a financial sector that reorients finance flows to nature-positive investments. And this means consumers like you and me demanding deforestation-free products and services and voting for sustainability at the ballot box. And this means integrating the voices of indigenous groups and knowledge into our efforts. And this means a multilateral system built on solidarity that strives to unite the three Rio Conventions on biodiversity, climate change, and desertification. Look, the clock is ticking. What we do or don't do in the next 10 years matters, and history will hold us to account. So, on International Day for Desertification, let's restore land and recover together. Let's all join the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration and contribute to this global movement together.
Kenya is an agricultural land and most people are dependent on land-based livelihoods. Women are at the front line when matters concern land. The growth of agricultural output in Kenya is constrained by many challenges including soil erosion, low productivity, agrobiodiversity loss, and soil nutrient depletion. Land exploitation devoid of proper compensating investments in soil and water conservation will lead to more severe land degradation. All of these environmental and climatic factors are coming together to reduce the welfare of locals, and a significant portion of the population is forced to look for more effective farming solutions and alternative sources of income. As is the case across much of the world, the main burden often falls on women. This is Professor Wangari Maathai, the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She mobilized Kenyans, particularly women, to plant more than 30 million trees and inspired the United Nations to launch a campaign that has led to planting of 11 billion trees worldwide. More than 1 million Kenyan women benefited from her tree planting campaign by selling seedlings for reforestation. I speak with my grandmother Joyce on her piece of land on the slopes of Mount Kenya. As a woman dependent on land in Kenya, she tells me the issues women have faced over time.
Mwana ciarwa bila kwa manjiri akithia akithambura akendokwa nake riu arwara manje makithie ndumari ino maria magitangua kiroko makithie makiragirua vari marirua makithie makithwa mwana akenavora ugetua menu ugekira riko kigaria mwana akenekatea akenavora riu miti ni avetagwa ciana irio.
Women constitute the bulk of people who rely on land in many of the regions most affected by desertification, land degradation, and drought. 1 in 3 people on Earth depend directly on agriculture, while nearly 80% of employed women in least developed countries report agriculture as their primary livelihood. Women are on the front line struggle to salvage the large area of agricultural land already affected by soil degradation. Biased social norms curtail women's rights to access, use, inherit, transfer, control, benefit from, or own land. In many settings, retrograde gender roles dictate that only men can manage key assets, such as land, and that they have ultimate authority over weighty decisions concerning the control of resources. In contrast, women's rights to land depend on, at times, precarious relationships with their male kin. Women are central to our successful efforts to manage land sustainably, build resilience, and ensure food security, and they play critical roles in the agricultural value chain, including the availability, access, and utilization of food.
Taten dir weh, versperrten dir die Sicht. Für dich wurde es Zeit zu gehen, Zeit für die Suche nach Licht. Gib nicht auf, Menschen, die dich lieben, genug Kraft, um zu siegen, deine Dämonen zu bekämpfen, ihnen ins Gesicht zu grinsen. Gib nicht auf, du bist so viel stärker, als du glaubst. Nach so vielen Niederschlägen ballst du immer noch die Faust. Lass sie nicht siegen, dich irgendwie verbiegen. Keiner kann dir entnehmen, was der Herr dir einst gegeben. Dein Licht, dein Licht, dein Licht. Vergangenheit liegt hinter dir. Was dich nicht gilt, macht dich stark. Du bist der beste Beweis dafür. Du bist geprägt von deinem Schmerz. Befreie dein Herz. Es ist Zeit, wieder glücklich zu sein und von innen nach außen zu scheinen. Lass sie nicht siegen, dich irgendwie verbiegen. Keiner kann dir nehmen, was der Herr dir einst gegeben. Lass sie nicht siegen, dich irgendwie verbiegen. Keiner kann dir nehmen, was der Herr dir einst gegeben. Dein Licht, 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 dein Licht.
Dear friends of UNCCD, the theme of this year's Desertification and Drought Day is land-based ecosystem restoration to build back better after COVID-19. The World Future Council is very pleased to show its film It's All About Landscapes. The film shows policy solutions from Egypt, Ethiopia, Namibia and Jordan, as well as interviews with members of the World Future Council and recipients of the Alternative Nobel Award. On this Desertification and Drought Day, I call on you to spread knowledge about solutions and to help restore land-based ecosystem restoration. I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you.
Land in Africa. It is so important. Land is life. Agriculture is the backbone of many African economies. 80% of the population on the continent relies on natural resources, and the population is growing rapidly. Land in Africa. It is degrading. Farming is becoming more difficult. Biodiversity is lost. Precious water runs off and takes topsoil with it. Estimates are that 1/3 of the land in Africa is degraded. Land degradation is a key driver of extreme poverty, conflict and migration on the continent. Now for the good news. Restoring land is not only possible, it can also have a huge impact on food, soils, and livelihoods on the continent. 2 billion hectares of land worldwide have the potential for restoration.
And in Africa alone, is about 450 million hectares of land where there's still potential for restoration. Bring this into context now when you talk about food security, poverty alleviation. In Africa, when you map poverty, food insecurity, and hunger, it quite correlates with degraded landscape, which means that fighting hunger, bringing zero hunger in Africa, is about restoring the degraded landscape.
We know the science is telling us that climate change will disproportionately affect Africa. Africans will face extreme temperature effects. We're already seeing weather patterns that are extreme in the drought and in the rain and floods. And Africa also stands the least chance of adapting. We don't have the technology and the resources that most countries have in the West. So we must be most concerned, and we must start where we know we have a lot of potential. Africa has a lot of people, and we can put a lot of trees in the ground. The potential for restoration through tree planting is great. Potential for restoration through natural regeneration is equally great.
Africa has huge potential for land restoration. You can find tried and tested solutions on the continent already. The World Future Council and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification have identified solutions that contribute to the protection of life and livelihoods in the drylands. What are the policies that work well for land restoration in Africa? Tigray, northern Ethiopia, 6 million people, 80% smallholder farmers, a dry mountainous landscape. Tigray's highlands are densely populated, and in the past, people have degraded the land. When this fragile balance disrupted, catastrophes such as the 1984 famine happened. Estimates are that the famine affected 8 million people, leaving 1 million dead. The famine convinced a majority of the surviving people that only if they fundamentally changed the way they lived would there be a chance of survival on the land. Today, traveling through Tigray is a mind-blowing experience. Hill after hill after hill is terraced. People are claiming they moved more stones than it took to build the pyramids. Years ago, people left the valley of Merere because there was no water, there was no food. Then they came back and started a miracle. These hills have seen 30 years of soil and water conservation work by the local community. Government and donor-funded programs have supported this work. Today, the water flows and 1,500 hectares can be cultivated in Merere. Farmers are growing teff and sorghum. They are harvesting papaya and mango and cutting grass for their animals. Livestock is not allowed to roam free because the hills are protected. And the hills pay back. They shed water. Today you can walk along this irrigation canal for 9 kilometers and the water just flows. In February, before the farming season starts, the farmers of Merere will set out again to work on the canal. They are planning to add another 11 kilometers. Tigray policies have been recognized as the world's best policies to combat desertification and land degradation by the World Future Council. A combination of 3 policies received the organization's Future Policy Award in gold, the only award that honors policies rather than people. The conservation-based strategy of the government, which puts smallholder farmers at the core of development, campaigns that mobilize people to contribute 20 to 40 days of voluntary labor per year, and a policy that allows youth to use land for income generation if they restore it at the same time. In Ethiopia, almost 6 out of 10 farm households cultivate less than 1 hectare of land. When productive land is scarce, how can young people make a living in rural areas? Restoring marginal land, steep hills, for example, is a solution. A youth group in Malfa, Tigray, has terraced a steep hillside. They are planting onions in winter and a whole range of crops like tomatoes, lentils, cabbage, and spices in summer. Another group of young people has planted a steep hillside with trees and started honey production. With the youth group, there is significant change in our life. We are 30 members in the group. At the beginning, there were some problems, especially in guarding the beehives. But now my husband is employed as a guard with a monthly salary of 1,000 birr. We now are producing better products. We pay back the loans for the beehives by selling the honey. The income we generate by selling firewood and grass for fodder, we spend on food or pay into a savings account. Once we have paid back our loans, we are planning to expand the businesses. We want to purchase mills and start a milling business for teff. Land in Africa. Nearly half of the land on the continent is used as pastoral land, as rangeland. Pastoralists in dry lands are adapted to a fragile and harsh environment. As their land degrades, nomadic pastoralists move on. Conflicts with local farmers over resources arise. What if there was a way to restore the enormous pastoral lands of Africa? Globally, a method is emerging which is challenging common ideas. It is called holistic rangeland management. The method is inspired by the huge herds of the Serengeti. These herds graze and browse intensively, but then they move on and do not return for a long time. This gives the land time to rest and recover. Holistic rangeland management adopts this idea. Livestock should not be allowed to roam freely, but should be moved in a big herd according to a grazing plan. Namibia has adopted a national policy which reflects the method of holistic rangeland management. It works with principles rather than with rules and regulations. It encourages farmers to know their resources, to manage for effective rest and recovery, to improve soil condition. This is a farmer-driven policy, and the implementation is organized through farmers' unions and farmers' associations.
Our farmers can definitely really learn from it. If you're actually looking at the cattle, they are very calm, and as you see around, they're actually in, well, the condition is not that perfect at this point of the year, but they're actually reflecting what you're actually seeing on the land. Have been a very long dry season, and the rain just started, but as you look at the ground as well, nothing have improved yet. So they're really reflecting what's actually on the land currently. Yeah, but however, I think the program is going well, They are very calm. They are actually also quite in productive states as well. The policy have been launched in 2012 by the Minister for Agriculture and Water and Forestry. So, and ever since then we will try to take it to the farmers to inform them about the policy. Well, definitely it should be able to make a difference. Surely the farmers also are aware that, well, they cannot be cattle farmers without not be able to look after the land. They can only really farm profitably while simultaneously also taking care of the rangeland as well. Yeah.
In Namibia, the policy focuses on farmers on communal and private land. But do you actually have to own the land to restore it? In Ethiopia, all land belongs to the state and people can get the right to use it if they restore it. In Jordan, rangelands also belong to the state and local communities are now involved in land management. Traditionally, Bedouin people in Jordan effectively governed their rangelands through their own land tenure systems and grazing rights. Nomadic Bedouins could also raise their livestock with no regard to political borders. When rangelands were declared to state land in 1956, this discouraged pastoralists from conserving the resource and led to degradation. In 2013, Jordan started implementing an updated rangeland strategy which involves local communities in land management, enhances their roles and responsibilities, and empowers local governance. It builds on the traditional local knowledge system of Al-Hema.
أول ما كنا بنلف على زيارات على البيوت يقولوا لنا اذكروا بالقشع هذا يعني اليابس كان لا في عليها نبتات ولا شيء إنه هاي بدها تطلع من أول وجديد. قلنا بس وقفوا لنا عنها إحنا مدة سنتين أعطيناهم. هم وقفوا سنة اقتنعوا يعني. صاروا يجوا علينا على الجمعية وعلى الحمى يعني علشان إحنا الستات اللي اشتغلوا معانا أرامل أمهات أيتام خط الفقر يعني اشتغلوا معانا كم وحدة. في الباقي عندنا كثير يعني من الوضع هذا يقولوا أي شيء إحنا نطلع لحالنا نقطف ونجيب لكم على الجمعية.
In Islamic law, Al-Hema is a natural area which is set aside for the public good and may not be privately owned. The concept is more than 1400 years old. Hemas help conserve natural resources and biodiversity. They integrate community life, ethics, animal welfare, and more. Al-Hema encourages communities to build their own institutions to manage their rangelands. The Bani Hashem community in central Jordan has developed such a local tribal law and enforces the new land management system. After only a few years, the benefits are obvious. Indigenous floral species are back. Shrubs and grasses are regenerating. The women of Bani Hashem now cut herbs on the hills. They dry them and sell them as teas. Soil is one of the hottest topics in environmental discussions. Healthy soils store more water, grow better food, create diverse environments. Healthy soils can store huge amounts of carbon, which can help mitigate climate change.
The title deed that you have in whatever land that you own is making you also a custodian of the soil characteristic, the soil potential. If you own your land, you must be aware that the soil characteristics are not just yours. They are a global common. Many don't like to hear that, but it is just true.
We need a change in the way we do agriculture, also from the point of view of managing our soils. We need to go away from some of the old practices, which, although they may sound sustainable, are not necessarily sustainable. And why? It's because the farmer did not really take care of the life in the soil. So we need complex systems And we have demonstrated this through research, that such complex systems increase the carbon in the soil, water retention, nutrient cycling, and we have the methodology, we know it works. Again, why are we not doing it is the question. Wherever I go, I say, look, we need to do that now. Actually, we should have started yesterday because we know what to do, how to do it. There's no reason why we're not pushing more conservation agriculture, which again includes regenerative agriculture practices, agroecology, organic agriculture. I mean, this is all goes in the same direction of putting carbon into the ground because we know that's where it belongs to. We know that's where it helps cycling the nutrients, but also we know that it helps manage the water in the soil. So many, many more benefits.
With healthy soils, you can turn a desert into a productive farm. The Sekem initiative in Egypt shows just how successful such a model can be. Every piece of land has to be turned from desert into living soil. Sekem applies biodynamic agriculture, which has a holistic understanding of life processes. Today, the top layer of Sekem's farm soils is rich in organic matter and microbiological life. Compost builds up empty desert soils. Healthy soils like this can also hold more water.
What you can see here walking around are living soils. So out of dead, mainly dead sand, yellow sand, you will see here brown, dark, black soils. And all this organic matter and carbon, which has changed the color, is what makes these soils very, very fertile. We have also shown that we can handle the whole cultivation cycle with less water, 20 to 40% less water than our neighbors. And what is the most important is that we can do so by giving more people a job than any conventional neighbor in the whole region. Biodynamic farming worked out very well for us. It's based on our black gold, the compost, which is really very, very, very important. But as soon as you can handle a good compost production and really work on your living soil, then desert land reclamation can be handled in a biodynamic way. The Sekem model is based on biodynamic farming, but also on what we call economics of love, on a very active living, learning organization and community building effort, and on our continuous effort to build the individual potential of all of our members in the community. In the vision of my father, who established Sekem 41 years ago, it was always about unfolding people's potential, supporting the people to create a living, learning organization and also develop themselves as a community. And everything else you can see here at Sekem, whether it's our plantations, whether it's our potatoes or oranges, whether it's our factories with machines and 800 million tea bags and so on, all these are considered tools to achieve this development. So what is always in the focus is the development of each one of our members' potential, and everything else helps us on this path.
Today, the Sekem Group employs more than 2,000 people. Its core businesses are organic farming, plant-based medicines, and textile production. The Sekem companies include the largest packer of organic tea and the leading producer of herbs in the Middle East. Hundreds of children learn in Sekem schools. Youth is qualified at a vocational training center and at the Heliopolis University of Sustainable Development in Cairo, which Sekem founded. Sekem received the Right Livelihood Award, also known as Alternative Nobel Prize. We know the solutions in policy and practice. transformation of landscapes, harvesting of water, growing of good food in healthy soils. If the solutions are so clear and so tangible, there is only one more question to ask. Why isn't it happening?
We tried to get the government to invite the stakeholders so that they are actually managing the process. It's very difficult to get the right people around the table. In addition to this, there's the pressure from development partners. And we've seen that a number of countries where actually big interests of the private sector, which basically comes in on the back of major donor country, will push certain agendas which go against what the will of the people. So yes, we need the people involved in the discussions, but then we also need to respect those discussions and do what people want and not what a donor still tries to impose. You can go to a number of countries where basically, despite the fact that the farmers didn't want, we have built huge rice schemes against the will of the farmer. We bring in factories for fertilizer but farmers say we don't need it. So again, there's a lot of talk about certain things. The action actually looks different. And that's why we have to become much more serious moving forward. If you want to really transform agriculture, the food system, we have to really start to pay attention to what people really want. And I think if we were to listen more, work with them, with our stakeholders more, I think we would find a better solution.
Involve all those that are concerned, especially communities that have managed it wisely, skillfully for so many years. If you take women farmers, for example, they are real skilled on farm. They are the ones who do a lot of the sophisticated work. And their knowledge base there is much, much more than our of us scientists put together. Who are we to say now, okay, here is what you must do? It has to be from bottom up so that we work together. So my point is, capitalize on the knowledge, indigenous knowledge base, but also add whatever you can contribute by way of science. What is more important to me is the broad genetic adaptive complex, let's put it, which has been developed over years, co-evolving with the environment. We don't want to lose that. Losing that means losing everything. Genetic engineering is not going to save that diversity. It is a reductionist approach. All right? So it might have its application, but in the context it's being developed and used, no way. Because it is profit-oriented, not benefiting the real owners, but rather those who have the money and the scientists that can manipulate it in whichever way they want.
There is no need to reinvent the wheel. Political sustainable solutions for the key challenges of our time already exist. The responsibility lies with African policymakers and governments. They need to provide the right frameworks. They need to take the decisions. Diverse agriculture for healthy soils and thriving people, or industrialized monocultures that benefit multinationals and an elite. Everyone can play a role in fighting land degradation. Check your government's policies and make your personal contribution every day.
The trouble is the misconception that Western ideas are superior and good sign of civilization and modernization. Fast foods are coming here and that's it. You eat the young and the so-called educated, they just grab it. Eating diverse food is not fashionable, maybe. So people have to be educated.
So when you look at how to improve resilience in agriculture, that would go via diversification of crops. You want a diversification in the plate. So it's a demand issue. So if the people would start to think, well, we don't want to eat only maize, but we want more vegetables, we want different cereals, the farmers could start to grow more different crops, which would increase, again, the resilience of his system.
We must change the way we do agriculture. We must change, in fact, everything, because it is throughout the value chain of both production and consumption pattern. Landscape restoration will increase the availability of land for food production, will increase the availability of water resources, will increase the resilience of local communities to climatic shocks, will sustain the local and national growth, will alleviate poverty, will reduce food insecurity, will reduce resource-based conflict. I can go on and on. Sometimes I wonder why people don't see it. But maybe I need, and all those who believe in what I believe in, we need to do a better work in advocating for how crucial it is for the world to see that it is about the landscape.
Boden ist Leben. Wenn Sie das nächste Mal in den Wald gehen, nehmen Sie eine Handvoll Waldboden. In einer Handvoll Waldboden leben mehr Organismen als Menschen auf der Erde. Das ist doch unglaublich. Böden liefern uns Nahrung, Viehfutter. Böden speichern aber auch Treibhausgase. 4-mal so viel wie CO2 wie die Wälder, doppelt so viel wie die Luft. Nur mit gesunden Böden können wir die globalen Herausforderungen meistern. Hunger, Klimawandel, Artensterben und die Folgen der Corona-Pandemie. Aber die Böden sind nicht überall gesund. Ich habe das insbesondere in Afrika gesehen, wo der Klimawandel zuschlägt. Kein Niederschlag, die Dürre. Auf 3/4 der weltweiten Landfläche wächst immer weniger. Die Erde verliert auch täglich Land an die Wüsten, die Verwüstung. Jedes Jahr 12 Millionen Hektar. Das ist in etwa die Fläche eines Landes wie Bulgarien. Alle Kontinente sind betroffen, auch bei uns. Aber ganz besonders in Afrika, Asien, aber auch Amerika und Australien. Die Ursachen sind Übernutzung, Abholzung von Wäldern und ganz besonders die Folgen des Klimawandels. Kurz, der Mensch trägt dazu bei, dass sich die Wüsten ausbreiten. Und deshalb brauchen wir ein neues Verhältnis zur Mutter Erde. Wir müssen investieren, Böden wieder fruchtbar machen. Das ist möglich. Wälder wieder aufforsten. Und so verhindern wir Wasserarmut, schaffen Jobs, vor allem in ärmeren Ländern und damit Zukunft. Und wir brauchen nachhaltige Produktion, insbesondere in der Landwirtschaft weltweit und nachhaltigen Konsum. Sonst leben wir auf Kosten kommender Generationen. Deutschland unterstützt Partnerländer und die UN in ihrer Arbeit gegen Wüstenbildung. Über unsere Allianz Entwicklung und Klima kann auch jeder Einzelne von Ihnen seinen Beitrag leisten. Die Corona-Pandemie ist ein Weckruf an alle für mehr Nachhaltigkeit, ein Umdenken und eine Globalisierung, die wir gerecht gestalten, ohne Ausbeutung von Mensch und Natur. Deshalb handeln wir jetzt in diesem Sinne.
They say we're made of gold, and that in the motherland, kings and queens and their crown stuck with gods. You never walk alone. Why are you carry the world slow? You got earth, wind, water, fire. You're the reason why I'm here. Psichadam zuri, umoja, elongo, ubuntu elele, elongo, umoja, elongo, ubuntu elongo, ubuntu, ubuntu. Like Anjulu Ndinga Matai, you know why the birds will fly. Be my guide, your spark words that change your mind to the most beautiful creation on earth. Call out Shuno Batala. I am cause we are, and I got Africa in me. Umoja, Elongo, Ubuntu Elele, Elongo, Umoja.
Excellencies, friends, almost 30 years ago, the international community met in Rio to create a joint collaborative response to the world's growing environmental and development challenges. 3 major agreements came out of that meeting. 1 to deal with climate change, 1 to deal with biological diversity, and 1 to deal with desertification. As we respond to the current pandemic, the wisdom of having these sister Rio conventions becomes evident. The multi-layered crisis of COVID-19 has its root causes precisely in the climate crisis, biodiversity loss, and land degradation. The solution must come then from these 3 pillars. Nature is key for our sustainable recovery. Today, we emphasize that the land restoration is an essential component of any building forward strategy and recovery plan. That is why Costa Rica will host the global observance of the Desertification and Drought Day 2021 on June 17th. Friends, the stewardship of land is a joint global responsibility. Land is the foundation of our societies. It provides us food, healthy landscape, and thriving ecosystems. And fundamentally, it provides jobs. Millions of people across the world work in forestry, agriculture, and tourism, and those livelihoods must be protected. We are rooted in the places we love. For generations, our landscapes have provided us shelter, nourishment, and joy. The land is calling, and we need to invest our time, attention, and resources in this issue. A healthy land is a healthy world. Thank you.
The land beneath our feet is more than a physical space. Land is the inheritance of our past, from the generations who tilled its soil, dug the foundations of our farms and cities, and passed forth their knowledge and traditions. Land is a vital part of our present, hosting not only people but nature and the countless gifts nature bestows. We rely upon land for our health, prosperity, and recognize the role it plays in the climate system protecting this planet. Land is our future, for without healthy, regenerative, and sustainable land systems, the outlook for humanity and other living beings is bleak. Humanity is only as healthy as the land upon which it stands. It's why on this Desertification and Drought Day, we are reminded we must restore land where it has been lost, protect it where we can, and invest in its health as we would invest in our own. Particularly this year, investing in healthy land as part of a green recovery is a smart economic decision, not just in terms of creating jobs and rebuilding livelihoods, but in terms of insulating economies from future crises caused by climate change and nature loss. UN climate change recognizes that protecting what is above our heads depends on what is happening beneath our feet. We look forward to working with you in doing this. Thank you.
family farming, traditional agricultural practices, which are the majority in many parts of the world, are nature-rich practices, not only because they conserve biodiversity, but also and ecosystem functions, but also because they can adapt to the natural cycle.
Kita biasa menanam, cari-cari tanah tempat yang cocok lah, yang agak gembur-gembur begitu. Kita ndak tahu memakai pupuk apakah dia, kita ndak tahu, ndak biasa pakai pupuk.